Welcome to the sewing part of this class. So the first thing we'll do is to fold our fabric. So when we learned about the grain line, we said selvage to selvage. So I will fold selvage to selvage in the lengthwise grain. Then I will spread it out. The next thing I will do is to iron out this fabric. After I finish prepping out my fabric, the next thing I will do is to place my pattern on it. Whenever you're placing your pattern on your fabric, you should start with the pattern that says place on fold. Sorry, I did not give the sign or symbol for place on fold, but we are placing the front pattern on fold. So this is the folded part of my fabric. This is the folded part. I will align it with the center front of my pattern. I will pin this pattern down on my fabric. Make sure that the center front aligns with the folded part of the fabric. So when I finish pinning down the front pattern, I will now move over to the back pattern. For the back pattern, I'll use my ruler to make the grain line. But you know the up has already been shifted. So we'll just use the down part to align this pattern on the fabric. As you're placing this pattern on the fabric, make sure you give enough space for your sewing allowance for the front and then for also the back. So I'm going to leave some space here to accommodate the sewing allowance for the side seam. I'm going to make use of my grain line now. I don't want to have grain line issues while sewing. So from the selvage, I'm going to make use of 11 inches to get my grain. So I'm going to pin it down. So you pin it on that line. I'll use 11 inches to pin here down. I will just leave the up this way. I've already adjusted it, so there's no way I can get a straight line there anymore. So I'll pin this too. This is 11. We do this grain to avoid the fabric folding or twisting. If you are yet to understand grain line, you can watch my video, a video that talks about grain line. For every other part, I'm using ½ inch. But for the side seam, I will make use of 1 inch. At the hemline, I'll also make use of 1 inch. You can make use of a fabric pen or tailor's chalk. I've finished adding the necessary allowance on the back pattern. On the armhole, shoulder line, neckline, I added ½ inch. On the zipper allowance, hemline and side seam, I added 1 inch. For the front, I did the same thing. ½ inch on the neckline, on the shoulder line, on the armhole line. On the seam line, I used 1 inch, and also on the hemline, I used 1 inch too. So the next thing we'll do is to cut out this pattern on the fabric. Then we'll transfer the darts to the fabric and we'll proceed to sewing. To get my neck facing, I did 3.5 widthwise by 3.5, and I followed the shape of the neckline here. So the width is 3.5 and the depth is 3.5. You can do 3, you can do 2.5. It don't depends on you. Go ahead and notch the mid part of this front facing. Then for the back, you might not need it, but I like to label. So I'll just label here CB, and I'll do the same here CB. Then I will transfer these darts now. I'll use my dressmaker's pin and make a mark there. I'll repeat the same here at the waistline. I'll do the same here to get the width of this front dart. I'll also put another pin here. Then I'll put another one here, another one here, another one here, and another one here. So I'll go to the reverse side. If you want, let me put another one here too. So I'll go to the reverse side of this pattern and make dots. You can make use of your chalk, but I will make use of fabric pen. It is heat erasable, so with heat I can just take it off. I will make another dot here, another one here, another one here. Everywhere I have the pin, I'll just make my dots there. Then I'll start taking off my pin. So you might not be able to see it, but I can see it from here. I have a small dot there, so I know that that's where I will connect my dart from. I'll go to the waistline, the dart there. I'll take off the pins. Then I'll make my dots there. I'll repeat the same here too. I'll make my dots. I'll make my dots. I'll take off these pins. Just do it gently. I can see my dots here and another one here. So I've made the dot lines for this. 1, 2, 3 at my bust darts. After taking off the pins, the next thing I'll do is to connect the points.
I'll transfer the back dart to the fabric just the same way I did for the front. Then I will connect all the points. I will notch my hip, my waist, my above knee. I'll mark out the sewing allowance that I added when cutting this fabric. I'll continue towards my side seam close to my bust point line. Then I'll go to my neckline, the same thing, half an inch all around. I'll do that at my shoulder, at my armhole, and then I'll proceed to my back block. Right here, I'm pressing my zipper allowance.
The first thing I will do is to sew my darts. I have 4 darts here. I'll start by sewing all the 4 darts. So let's start. I'll hold the darts this way. I will make sure that I start sewing from the tip. So on this video, we are going to learn how to sew darts if you have not sewn that before, and we're also going to learn how to fix zip. I'll do the same for the other part. So this is what I do, just so I'll be faster while doing this. I will sew the dart on the back part of my gown. Don't forget, what I used here is fabric pen. So the moment I apply heat on this fabric, everything will just vanish.
I will start sewing from the tip of the dart and I will continue on it until I get to the end.
So trim off all the hanging threads. I'm going to use another method to sew my dart here. You can use any of them.
For this second method, I will leave some amount of thread, so I will use it to knot the dart when I'm done, and I will continue sewing this until I get to the end of the dart. Note, I did not backstitch both in the beginning and the end. I did not backstitch, so I will just knot the dart this way. I will do this 3 to 4 times and I will proceed to sewing the bust dart.
I want to sew the bust dart now.
I will start by backstitching to keep the stitch tight. Then I'll continue to sew from the side seam towards the tip of the dart. I will also backstitch again. After sewing all the darts, I will apply stay to my zipper allowance. Please ensure you apply stay, else you will have that wavy zipper effect at the center back.
So after putting the stay on the zipper allowance, what I will do is I will sew from my hip. So I marked my hip. I will sew from my hip all the way to my above knee. You can come down 1 inch. It all depends on you. You can still come down 1 inch from your hip line. So the reason why I'm sewing from my hip line, because I want to be able to wear this garment when I'm done sewing. So some people come down 1 inch or 2 inches from their hip line, but I just want to sew from my hip line. The zip I have here should be 24 inches by length. So this is it, 24 inches. That's the length of my zipper. What I do whenever I want to fix my zipper is I fold it this way. Then I mark it here. This will enable me to know where to place my zipper on. So I gave half an inch at the neckline for sewing allowance. So I will mark that half inch here. Then to know how to place your zipper, this part of your zipper should align with the rough side of your zipper allowance. So that place that I marked, I will place it this way. Will align with this upper part so that when I'm done, when I turn it with facing, everything will just relax. If you want, you can pin. If you're not used to it, you can do without. I'm going to take off this my universal presser foot. I'm going to put my zipper foot. We are going to learn how to use the zipper foot on this video. So this is my zipper foot. I'm going to put it from behind this way. I'll tighten it. I'll open up my zipper this way. Then I'll make sure that this zipper coil aligns with the marked part. Then I'll start to sew.
Ensure that you continue to sew along the marked line for the zipper allowance. So you continue that way, gently taking off the pins from the way. Don't rush while sewing zip, so you get the perfect result you want.
To sew the other part of the zip, I will turn it. I'm going to start from the down part and come towards the up. Then I will still follow the line, the 1 inch line I made for the allowance, or the line that you ironed on, whichever one you want to use. When I get to this edge, I will repeat the same thing I did on the other one. I will mark that allowance at the neckline, and I will make sure that it aligns with the mark on my zipper. When I get here, I'll raise my presser foot so I can move my zipper out of the way, the zip head. I move it out of the way. Then I can complete my sewing. See, this mark must align with this so that you can have a good finishing. The zipper is equal and is neatly fixed. First thing I will do is to join my facing. Then I'll use this facing to turn the neckline. So let's proceed to that. But before that, I'm going to change my presser foot, so I don't need the zipper foot anymore. I will go back to my standard foot. After joining my facing, I'll give it a good press. So press open this so it will be flat. Do same here. Press open it so it will be flat. I'll go ahead to join the shoulders, my front and back shoulder. Right now, I finished ironing the darts. So if you're ironing your darts, make sure it's placed towards the center. So if you iron the front, you iron your dart towards the center front this way. So you can see it's facing the center front. Then for your bust dart, make sure that the bust dart, you iron it towards your waist. It should be facing your waist, not your armhole. If you iron it this way, it's going to interfere when you're fixing your sleeve. So make sure your bust dart is ironed towards your waist line, not your armhole. Then for the back, we'll repeat the same thing for the back. Iron your dart towards your center back. Towards your center back. Don't forget to iron your zip. After fixing your zipper, ensure to iron it. Press it down neatly. Then after ironing the darts, iron your shoulder joining. Every seam you have sewn, press it down. Make sure it's completely pressed down. It's flat.
I'll turn my fabric to the right side and I'll also give it a good press. My darts, my zipper, my bust dart, as well as the shoulder joining, so I will get a relaxed look.
Next thing is to iron your facing. You press it flat on the wrong side, then you go to the right side and repeat the same thing. So the first thing I will do is to turn my neckline with the facing I have. I will make sure that I align this notch at the center front to that of the gown. Then I'll use my pin to hold it. Then I'll go to the shoulder and I'll align the shoulder this way too, so I don't have any excess. Then I'll open up my zipper allowance. Then I will make sure this mark, this mark on my facing aligns with the mark I gave on the fabric. Repeat the same thing on the other parts, shoulder to shoulder. Please make sure it's the right side of your facing. Should face the right side of your gown. Right side facing each other. And make sure that the shoulder aligns too. Then pin it down. To get a neat finishing, you need your hemming gun. You can still do without it, but I like to use the hemming gun. Whenever I'm sewing neckline, armhole, waistline, that's maybe I want to turn the waistline of my skirt, I like to use hemming gum because it will somehow drag in the lining or the facing inside, so it will not be coming out. So I will place it this way and I will start to sew. I will trim off the allowance on the facing because I don't want bulk around the neckline. This is also optional. I'm going to trim off my allowance from half an inch to quarter of an inch at the neckline. After trimming the neckline, I'll go ahead and notch it. So I'll notch it this way, making sure I'm 1/8 inch away from the place where I sew. Or you can do 1/4 of an inch away. Just do not notch through it, but go as close as you can. I'll do the same here. After notching around the neckline, the next thing I'll do is to sew down this part of the facing to the zipper allowance. Now I will sew it very close to the zipper coil. I will sew it to the teeth of the zipper, very close to it. I'll do the same thing on this other part. After doing that, I will turn it over and give it a very good press. After you finish pressing, with the help of the notches here and the hemming gum, this facing will be able to lap neatly without coming out on the right side of the garment. So it's going to lay flat at the wrong side of the garment. So that's the essence of the notches and the hemming gum. I've finished sewing the allowance on the zipper part. So the next thing I'll do is to trim off this edge because if you turn it this way, it will be bulky on the right side. So what I'll do is this: I'll trim off this way, so that I will not have excess. And I'll also trim off this edge. I'll do the same thing on the other part. Trim off this part this way. You come close, then I'll also trim off this up. So I will turn neckline out. Then I'll do the same thing at this other part. Turn it out. So the next thing we will do is to sew the side seam. Right now, I'm going to join the sides together. I'm going to make use of the 1 inch sewing allowance that I added when I was cutting out on fabric. So this is my armhole, right sides facing each other. So you ensure that they match. So I'm going to match up my hip line and I will also match up my hem line. I'll join both sides together. The next thing I'll do is to fix my sleeve. So to avoid any grain line issues on my sleeve, I make sure I make use of the selvage as my lengthwise grain. So I will take my sleeve and align it here. This fold here, so I'm going to make sure I place the middle point of my sleeve on that fold so I don't mistakenly cut on bias. You can still cut any other way you want, but this is how I just like to cut my sleeve. Especially when I've already removed the front armhole excess. So I'm going to add half an inch here all around the armhole. I'll use 1 inch on the side seam and also 1 inch for my hem line. I have 2 layers of fabric here, so I'm cutting the 2 sleeves at the same time. So after cutting this sleeve, we will now move over to the sewing machine for the sewing parts or to the sleeve onto the basic gown block. So the next thing I will do here now is to fix my sleeve into my armhole. So what I will do is I will first of all join my sleeve on the wrong side. So this is the wrong side of my sleeve, and I added 1 inch sewing allowance. So I'm going to sew it down first. We have other methods of doing this, but let's do this for this particular lesson. Maybe in our next lesson, we'll learn how other ways or techniques of fixing the sleeve. After joining the side of the sleeve, the next thing you should do is iron the seam open, and then you fold it this way, and iron. Form like a triangle, or you can just use your pin and hold it like this so that when you're sewing, this will give ease. When you wear your garments, you will not have difficulty raising your hand. So this tip of the sleeve we notch. This is the center point of the sleeve. You will take it and match it with the shoulder part. So you match the notched parts of the sleeve to your shoulder joining. So this is the back part of my sleeve. It will match with the back, and this is the front. It will match with the front of my gown. Right side of my sleeve facing the right side of my gown. I'll match this way. So I'm going to match up the seam of both the sleeve and the dress this way. So I have just finished easing my sleeve into the armhole and it fits perfectly. The next thing I'll do now is to sew. So the first thing you do is you backstitch just to hold your seam firmly. Right here, I finished fixing the sleeve. So we will do the same for the other part of the armhole. Then we'll proceed to the next step. So right here, I finished fixing the both sleeves. Next thing I'll do is to finish off the hemline of this dress. So because this gown does not have lining, I will do the hem this way. I'm going to fold it this way. We have other techniques too. Some people can just, anyway, let's not go into that, but let's learn this method in this class first. So I'm just going to bend this from that 1 inch allowance, hemming allowance that I added. I'm going to do this, bend it this way, then I'll mark this, then I'll also mark this. So if you're making any dress that doesn't have lining or skirt and you're not going to put lining and it has a back slit this way, you can finish it this method now. Or ready to wear, you can also do that this way. So after marking this, you turn it this way and take them, make them to align like this. Then you get your ruler. You're going to measure from here till this point here, till that's 1 inch point. So where we are hitting is here, but in the reverse side. So I'm just going to rule it so you will understand what we are doing. So you're going to sew directly on that line. When we are done with this, then I'll trim off the excess I have here, which is this. I will just leave 1/4 inch allowance there. Give this a good press and it will relax properly. So I will do the same thing here. The 1 inch I used for my allowance, so I will be able to fold it properly. Or you can iron this before this stage. Before doing this, you can just give it a good press so you can get that 1 inch. Then you go ahead and mark this way and this way. So I've just marked the edge here, the edge vertically and the other side horizontally. So that's how we know where to merge. So I will merge the both sides together. Then I will rule a line from that place that I merged to this side. So we are ruling from the open part to the closed part that looks like a bias. I will trim this, leaving 1/4 inch allowance. I'll turn the right side out. You can get something that is pointy and push out the edge. You can see that the hemline, they both align. So that's what you should get when you are done. Now after this, I'm going to give this a very good press. Then I will fold the hem and use hemming gum to put everything in place. But before I do all of this, I will first of all weave the edges, so I will not have rough edges here. I'm going to weave everything around, then I'll put it on and you'll see how it looks.
Thank you for staying up to this time with me. If you found value in this video, please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and leave me a sweet comment. Until we meet again. Bye bye for now.